So, like I said, when I start talking about parents as teachers, caregivers as teachers, I suspect that a lot of parents start to get a sinking feeling, especially after the kinds of things that people went through last spring when many schools closed down, and are continuing to go through as schools are sort of precarious or in various stages of being open or partially online. I know that a lot of the families that I am supporting really struggled in the springtime when schools here in the Lower Mainland were closed down, and that it was really challenging for them to try and manage their work, which for many of the families I supported, they were doing from home, while at the same time trying to manage their child's education, which was also happening at home. And so I don't want today's presentation to be something that makes parents feel more stressed than they already do, or afraid that they're not doing enough, because I think that we're in really unique conditions right now. So the message always from me is going to be, you do what you can in any given situation. And so we know that the situation's really challenging right now. So if we talk about a bunch of things today and you get some great ideas, but you say to yourself, I don't have the energy right now, my energy needs to go towards just kind of getting through the day, that's absolutely fine, right? And completely understandable. Others of you might go, you know what, this I think might make my life easier, even as we deal with the pandemic. Great. So take what you get from today and apply it when you feel it's the most appropriate time for you. So I recognize that what we're dealing with right now is very exceptional and very unique, and it's affecting lots of people differently. So that's the first thing that I want to say. The other thing that I want to talk about in terms of just the word parent, or swap that out with caregiver, is that, if we look at the English language and look at how this word breaks down, we can look at a parent, right, from the perspective of it being a noun, the actual person or people who raise and care for a child. But my focus today is on the verb, parenting. And so really the act of raising and caring for a child, and how we can look at that role and what it is that parents and caregivers can do, particularly if you're raising children who have difficulty learning and are likely to have ongoing challenges learning and acquiring skills, how we can really sort of think about the long game and where we're headed to as they move towards adulthood, and how parents and caregivers can support their children in developing the skills that they're going to need as they move into adulthood. So when I talk about parents as teachers, I'm really referring to that important job that parents have of preparing their children to leave home and enter the real world, which I recognize is scary for all parents, and especially scary for parents of kids with autism or other developmental disabilities. When we think about being ready for the real world for anyone, that's going to involve a whole bunch of stuff. You have to know how to manage your own day-to-day tasks. Just, doing your laundry so you have clean clothes, making meals so that you have food, or at the very least, knowing how to order, setting and following a schedule, being able to sort of manage your day-to-day life and all of the things that are involved in that, right? At the same time, it also means knowing how to manage those kinds of bigger things, like how do you manage your home? How do you take care of your home? What about paying rent or a mortgage, and how do you organize those things? What about relationships? Relationships are important throughout your life. How do you build and maintain relationships? And I know that this is often something that's really scary for parents to sort of think about, well, what happens when my child is an adult and gets older and I'm no longer here? Who's going to be there for my child, and who's going to maintain a relationship with my child? So that's something that's really important. It's also really important to be able to solve any problems that you encounter as an adult. And so these are all the kinds of skills, and really just scraping the surface of the kinds of things that all adults need to be able to do. And so this is part of the job of parents, is to prepare their children for these things. And I think oftentimes for parents of kids with autism or other developmental disabilities, they sometimes get really focused in on some of those intervention kinds of goals, which certainly are important, But at the same time, it sometimes makes it difficult to step back and really see the big picture of where it is that we're going in the long term. And so what I want to do today is sort of help you step back and take a look into the future a little bit, not scare you too much while we do so, and start to think about how you can do some things today that will help prepare your child for tomorrow. Okay? So when we're thinking about those adult kinds of skills, and then we think about kids with autism, kids with other developmental disabilities, we start to think, well, they may not be able to do all of those things for themselves. And that's true, and that's fine, right? These are individuals who, to varying degrees, may need ongoing support throughout adulthood, throughout their lives. Some may need ongoing, fairly intensive support. Others may need sort of occasional support to lesser degrees, right? And so it really varies from one individual to the next. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that individuals with autism and other developmental disabilities have the same opportunities to develop the same kinds of skills as their non-disabled peers as much as possible. Certainly, we want all individuals to be as independent as they possibly can be. That doesn't mean that everybody is going to be living independently 100% of the time with no support. Some may, others may not. And when I talk about independent, we all recognize that no one, not one of us, is entirely independent. We're really interdependent, right? But there are many things that we can take care of for ourselves in our day-to-day lives. And so that's what I mean when I talk about being independent. We want all individuals to be active participants in their day-to-day lives. So historically, adults with developmental disabilities in general were sort of in the background in terms of running their day-to-day lives. Staff would make decisions, other people would make decisions. And there's been a real shift towards self-advocacy and people being in charge of their day-to-day lives. So that's something that we certainly want to facilitate for all individuals so that they can grow up to be adults who are able to manage and make some decisions and really direct their lives as much as possible. We want people to be involved in making major decisions that affect their lives. Things like where they might live or who they might live with or who provides support to them day to day, those kinds of things. If it were me, I would want to have a say in the staff person who's spending, 40 hours a week with me, because I don't want to spend 40 hours a week with somebody that I don't like, right? And so if I were a person with a disability, I would want to have some say in the decision making around that.